Welcome to week 10. I just got back from the Computer Using Educators Conference, the Q Conference in Palm Springs. They have an annual conference that tends to be a good sort of predictor of both what's can be found or will shortly be found in classrooms and what's coming down the pike a little longer. And I wanted to incorporate my impressions of what I was getting out of Q into this week. So I waited to assemble it till after I got back. We're going to go over the course calendar and our timing, and we're going to go over the assignments real quick. And then I want to talk to you about TPAC, sort of give you a Q report, and then do a response to our readings. It's all surrounding the idea of math activities with technology, math tasks with the technology, and assessments. So let's look at the calendar. We are finishing up week 9, which was facilitated by Dave, Lauren, and Nick. They did a great job. Your comments so far have been very positive about what's going on. A lot of you haven't finished up those activities yet, so that needs to happen. This is week 10, and I'm going to make it an abbreviated class. After week 10, we have 1 week off from classes at Cal State Fullerton, so you're basically going to have the next 2 weeks to do a very short class this week and to get caught up. When you come back, we'll have a class facilitated by Group 3, and then 2 weeks later we'll have a class facilitated by Group 4, and then a class facilitated by Group 5. Each of your groups has to have posted your course the Saturday before the week you're facilitating. So I've put the dates up here. It's April 5th for Group 3, April 19th for Group 4, and May 3rd for Group 5. Those of you that are caught up can use that extra week and the time this week to work on some of the assignments that are coming up pretty quickly. Just a quick review of the assignments. If you want me to take another look at your website, it needs to be finished by April 19th, and you need to send me an email asking me to, because I'm not going to go back and look at all of them all the time, so you need to do that. Your Intel collaboration plan was due on March 15th at the end of the Intel short class. Some of you are still working on that. We need to use the next couple of weeks to finish it up and get that in. The YouTube critique assignment, group assignment. If you submit a draft this next weekend, I'll get you some feedback back on it. I would encourage you to get to the draft stage with your group. The final project is due on April 5th. Then you have individual math tool screencasts or a grant proposal. Some of you have sent me your ideas or some drafts, and I've taken a look at them. The final piece is due April 12th. When you do your class facilitation, you need to do a class facilitation write-up about 1 week after. It's due approximately a week after you do the facilitation, while it's still fresh in your mind, because we want it to be a reflection. And then finally, don't forget that you should be assembling, or at least beginning to think about assembling, the analysis of My Learning ePortfolio, which will be due on May 15th, and that date's pretty strict, because those have to be graded and the grades turned in within a week of that time. So you're going to need to get those in on time. Now quickly, I want to talk to you about TPAC. TPAC is Technological Pedagogical Content Knowledge. It's sort of the framework that tries to describe all the pieces of knowledge that's needed for teaching a given subject. You need technological knowledge about the technology, you need content knowledge, and you need a pedagogical knowledge. And then where they meet, that's really what this class is about. It's about TPAC. It's about the knowledge about technology and content, and how to teach that content with that technology is TPAC. I have, for your first step 1, is a TPAC described in 3 minutes, and it's a YouTube video that's linked to the PowerPoint or is step 1 in the titanium page, our titanium page. And so we need to stop right now and just watch that little 3-minute YouTube video, please. Now that you have sort of familiarized yourself with the TPAC framework, I want to talk to you about what I saw in each of those areas coming from Q. I think that Q is a very good predictor of what's out there now. What you see, if it's pretty ubiquitous at Q, then you can assume that if your classroom doesn't have it, it will be getting it soon. And then it's also can show you what's coming down the road, both short term and a little longer out. And you can do that just based on looking at the everything that's offered in all the sessions, or by going to the sessions and sort of charting, synthesizing everything that's being said. And so from my point of view, this is how I read Q this year, I think you can assume that classrooms have technology. Almost all classrooms now have a teacher workstation or computer tied to a projector that projects on a screen. Many classes have smart boards, docu-cams, and assorted pieces of technology. Even if you don't have student computers in your classroom now, I think you can assume you will have them shortly. I don't know how. It will probably be staggered for some districts and schools to get to the 1-to-1 ratio, but I think you can almost assume that you'll have student computers in your classroom for use and that they will be tied to the internet. I think you can also assume that you will be expected to teach with social media, that will be incorporated into your teaching and your instruction in your classroom, and that more and more use of animation seems to be coming in or exist in classrooms. So I think within the next couple of years you can assume student computers, and you can assume internet access that's workable, and assume that you will be allowed to teach with social media, and that in fact a lot of you may achieve this with students being able to use their devices in your classroom. So that's, I think, sort of what's now. Coming soon, and this is really cool, are 3D printers. I sat in a room with a couple hundred people, and when asked how many of them had a 3D printer in their classroom, at least half had raised their hands. Now granted, these are the leading edge people, but I think that the price of 3D printers are coming down, and that the use of 3D printers is intriguing, and there's funding out there, grants that teachers are getting individually, and schools in general, for support of getting 3D printers and the associated software you use with them. So I think you should be thinking about how you might use 3D printers in your classroom. The other thing that's coming pretty soon is both games and gamification of your classroom. By far, the one that's talked about the most is Minecraft. It was mentioned in dozens of presentations and sessions and workshops. Lots of people are doing lots with Minecraft. Now that, it costs to have a school license in that, so it's going to be interesting to see how that rolls out. But I think in general, you're going to see games incorporated into the classroom, and then you're going to see digital textbooks. And this isn't just the textbooks in digital form, but you're going to see textbooks that can integrate video, that integrate audio, that integrate media, and that are constantly updated and downloaded kind of things, so that they don't go out of date. I think that's coming, and that's coming fairly soon. A little further out, but really cool, is augmented reality. And I think that's going to be, like I said, a little further out, but I think we're going to be seeing some neat stuff happen with augmented reality. As far as pedagogy goes, across the board, every session I heard, every session I read, every stuff just in general, it's becoming a student-driven world. Students are going to generate the questions. Students are going to generate, to some degree, the direction of the class. And definitely students are going to become producers. They are going to make things. A lot of talk about learning being a social thing, a lot of collaboration, a lot of projects and inquiry-based learning. That is becoming more the expected way. The I do, we do, you do kind of teaching, and this is particularly hard in math classes that have done it for so long. That is going to go away and be expected to go away. There's going to be many more. What we're looking at this week, technology-driven tasks and activities of how you teach the concepts of math. And that will become not the exception, but the norm. Remix is a really big topic. We live in a world where, people remix stuff all the time, and students remixing as a way, as formative assessment and summative assessment seems to be a big trend in math. Actually, students producing films or screencasts or digital collages that show or display a concept of math seems to be a favorite summative assessment that's emerging. So I think just from the large view, less lecture. We'll see that in our readings. Less lecture, more broken up lecture, more doing. Students actually choosing how to do things, and student questions driving the instruction more so than teacher questions. That's, I think, what's bubbling up as what's happening. And finally, content in math. What you're seeing is people really emphasizing the standards for mathematical practice, and that if you drill on the practice, if you take care of the practice, that the content sort of does itself. It's a really weird thing, but the content is just meant to be what you should make sure you get covered, but it's the math practices that people are focusing on for career and college readiness. It isn't math facts you need to know. It's you have to have grown and be able to demonstrate the mathematical practices. I think we're coming to a time where we'll have mastery-based, we'll be allowed to teach in a mastery-based way where it isn't a fixed time that we work on something and we teach to the middle of the room, and that the level of achievement varies in our classroom, but that it will become a fixed level of achievement and variable time for different students to get there. It's less a matter of time in the seat to measure learning, but mastery of concepts that will determine and measure learning. And then the concept of everybody having to learn the same stuff at the same time, I think, is something that's going to be morphing or changing, and we're going to be able to do that with the use of technology. What's coming up next in the future is you're going to see coding and the maker movement incorporated into classes, and because of that, you're going to see integration both within subjects and across subjects. I think that's coming. It's being fought for a whole lot of reasons, but I think that if Q's does its predicting as well as it has in the past, those things are going to be coming along. So the times, they are changing. Now, step 2. I want you to go in on the forum and tell me what evidence in your classroom or school or district can you find for any of the trends that I was mentioning. And how do you feel about the changes technology will be catalyzing in the future? I mean, what do you like? What don't you like about where technology is taking teaching and learning in the K through 12 classroom? going along with the trends that we were talking about from Q, I want to take up the first article, Designing Technology Activities That Teach Mathematics. And even though they used robotics, which, and although it'd be really cool to have robots in your classroom to use to teach with, not all of us do, not all of us will have, but I think the principles they came up with for designing technology-based activities that teach math are good, solid principles. It was a really cool project, too. I mean, I thought it was a great way to teach proportional reasoning. But I want you, after you've read the article, to think about each of the principles. And I want you to pick one of the principles and describe how it was applied to their study project with the robot project. How did they accomplish that principle? And then discuss how you might apply the principle in an activity you create for your class. The second article we read this week was Mathematical Teaching Practices with Technology that Support Conceptual Understanding for Latino or Latina Students. And I want you to reflect on what differed in the teaching practices of the three teachers who were compared in the study. What was different? Which of these differences do you think had the largest impact? There was no way to measure that, which difference was the biggest contributor. But I'd be interested in your opinion about that and why you think that particular difference had the most impact. So I think the themes that run through this short class session is that as we're looking at technology tasks or activities that build conceptual understanding, mathematical conceptual understanding, you're looking at activities that there's less lecture involved. There's actually less instruction from the teacher involved. They tend to be more exploratory. They tend to be collaborative. They tend to be driven somewhat by student-generated questions. And almost all of them, it's a process of students creating a product that demonstrates their conceptual knowledge. And that actually serves as the assessment instead of other more traditional forms of tests serving as assessments. So that's what we're looking at when we're applying technology to mathematical tasks and assessments. Is we're looking at creating activities where students work together and their questions drive the process. And they produce something that shows a conceptual understanding as the assessment. So that's it for now. Bye-bye for 2 weeks. I want you to use this time to, catch up and complete this week's activities. They shouldn't be too burdensome. And then work on your course assignments and get those progressing along. Thank you, and I'll be talking with you soon.